All right, Will Marie, you want to kick us off?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's board chair check-in and update meeting. My name is Will Marie Newton, and I will be your moderator today. In order to avoid background noise, I ask that you please mute yourself if you're not speaking. However, you can unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question, or you can type it into the chat box. If you have a webcam, we welcome you to turn it on so we can make this more interactive. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be archived on CABE's website under Services. And I'd like to introduce Patrice McCarthy, CABE's Executive Director and General Counsel.
Thanks so much, Will Marie, and Happy New Year to everyone. We hope that you had a joyous and hopefully restful holiday season and are now ready to approach the budget meetings, the advocacy at the state legislature, and everything else that will be coming our way in the next few months. We thought that it would be helpful to focus today's discussion on advocacy since the General Assembly convened on January 6th. Committees are holding their organizational meetings, and uh, we are looking forward to CABE's Day on the Hill on March 12th. So mark your calendars and watch for more information about that. My theme this year is bring a colleague. Many of you are veterans of Day on the Hill. Invite one of your board members that may not have attended before to come with you, because as we were leaving Day on the Hill last year, several board members commented to me that, gee, they wish they had suggested to one of their peers that they join them for the day. Um, the governor's budget will be released on, that may have been a Freudian slip. It will be released on February 5th, and we will be doing a webinar on February 6th. And that webinar will be archived. So if you're not able to tune in live, we'll give an overview of the budget so that you don't have to necessarily pour through the thousands of pages in the document, unless that's your pleasure. If that's your bedtime reading, that's great too. I'm going to turn it over to Sheila. I think she's in her office.
Yep,
There
there
she
she
is.
is.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to Sheila, who is our advocacy expert, and will talk to you about what to look for in the coming days and weeks and what you can do. Sheila.
Great. Thank you, Patrice. Good morning, folks. I wanted to give you an overview as to what's going on at this stage of the legislative process, and give you an understanding as to how you can be involved in it as well. Patrice did say Day on the Hill is March 12th. We are hoping that you'll join us. If you're on our board, we expect that you'll join us. We we know at this point the legislature is reviewing bills that have been proposed. So no deadlines have passed, although tomorrow is a deadline for submitting any new bills that people would like to consider. But then the committee process takes a hold and says, well, yes, we'll do that. No, we won't do that. So there is process within process. We've seen bills. I just have a listing here of my beginning of my tracking of special ed, cardiac arrest, credits for paying your student loans for off your income tax, high fructose corn syrup. It runs the gamut to some extent. Not all those bills will have a public hearing. They need to, any legislator that proposes a bill then needs to lobby the leadership of the committees to get their bill heard or proposed in a committee process. So the process doesn't end with just proposing a bill. So deadlines, as I said, tomorrow for proposing bills, and then committees will hold meetings to raise concepts and raise bills, and then the staff will draft those bills, and then they'll come to public hearing. Some committees hold public hearings on broad concepts without drafting and then draft after they've heard the copious amounts of comments that you've made in public hearing. And then either consider those comments or don't consider those comments. How many of you have ever, by maybe just a show of hands, have ever testified or been a part of the process up there? Okay, so not too many. All right, 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. And Nick, as yes, that's wonderful. It's early days, as I say, the process is such that those public hearings will take place probably end of February, beginning of March. The deadline for the committee is the end of March. Every committee has a deadline by which then they must get bills forward for full debate in the House and Senate. There is layered on this year a select committee on special education, which will be dedicated towards special education issues. That committee met yesterday for the first time, and from conversations I had with staff, they expect to have, and Speaker Ritter did say this too, they expect to have 2 public hearings outside of the building. Out in the wild, shall we say. One of them I've been told may be in Norwich. That will be good for our Norwich folks. Hi, Mark. But we don't know where the other one will be. I expect it will be, another end of the state. And then staff did tell me yesterday that there'll probably be 1 public hearing in the building. Patrice can go into detail at, we expect we'll have another webinar on the special ed task force working group that met and deliberated for well over a year on changes that we'd like to see made to special education. We hope that the committee will take into account some of those changes, and we've already lobbied for some of those changes, as has CAPS. We expect that all of you will have an opportunity in your budget process to go through your special ed numbers, your special ed programs, and look at what you're doing. This is a great opportunity for your voice in a committee that's going out into the world, out into the wild, to have public hearings. So I would more than encourage you to do that. Don't have dates for anything at this point. In the committee process, we're given 5 days notice for a public hearing date. So don't expect to hear any earlier than 5 days. And I apologize already if you can't make it, but what can we do? There's a lot more of you out there that probably can make it. So, public hearings, that's that part of the process. The public hearing doesn't end your opportunity for public comment. We do, as I say, have our day on the Hill where you can have one-on-one conversations. You'd set up meetings with your legislators. They may be on the run and know that you're coming and have a conversation with you in the hallway. That's still as good an opportunity as any to have a conversation with them. But get them the facts and figures on special education. How many students are you outplacing, if you can give them that number, in terms of not, messing with student confidentiality, but, the number of students you're outplacing, the cost that it's up, the cost associated with doing that, the percentage of that in your budget. Have you hired staff to build up programs within your district? Or have you looked into sharing services with your other neighboring districts? What's prohibiting you from doing something like that? Really look at this process and look at what we can do to make some changes. Are you seeing more students with more disabilities in a certain area? So therefore, yes, you are looking to do something with another district. Where are you seeing trends? So again, great opportunity. That's one of the issues we expect that will get big debate. And I should say too, in press conference that happened, I think it was last week, with the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate and their colleagues, they did talk about 2 big issues that they jointly, House and Senate leadership, Democratic leadership leaders, Democrats in control this year's, talked about education and housing. So for them, number one, to hold joint press conferences this early in the process and to agree that those are their two big issues. Again, I'll reiterate, we have an opportunity to make some change. Um, uh, I guess what I would say to you is it's Senate Bill 1 and Senate Bill 5001. Those bills are currently in the Education Committee. And they are special ed / ed bills. And we hope that you will take that into account. The other parts that go with the process in terms of down the line, I said to you, it's not the only time you have in terms of public hearing to make your voice heard. Again, our day in the Hill. And then, if you see them out in the grocery store, the produce department, whatever, take the time just to say, thank you for what you're doing. And I want to get back to you on X issue because it involves Y. Make that a sentence, not a diatribe. They've got to pick up whatever they need and get the heck out of the grocery store like anybody else. But take the opportunity to make that connection. If you haven't been to one of our breakfasts, there's still some coming up. I would hope that you try to make time to do that. If you can't make a breakfast and your district would like to have, or I would encourage your district to take the time to have your legislators to your meetings. I know a legislator from, his Senator Gordon from the Quiet Corner, from the Bofford area, that area. Doctor by trade, but touched base with it was one of our he's going to Stafford to one of the budget meetings. He invited himself. She said yes. The co-chair, I'm sorry, the chair of the Board of Education. So, I don't expect he's going to have a lot to interject into a budget meeting, but he's going to learn an awful lot. Again, I'm not necessarily expecting you'll want him at your budget meetings, but know that there are legislators out there that do value having that connection with you as board members. Many of the members that are serving on the legislature now are educators. Some of them are former school board members. We have 2 that are serving on their boards and serving in the legislature. Leonard, I see you. I'll be right with you. We have Representative Moira Rader from Guilford, who serves as the board chair in Guilford and serves as a state representative, and newly elected Chris Stewart from Putnam, who's going to continue to serve on the Putnam board and is now an elected representative in the Republican Party for the House. So, you couldn't have better connections than that. Again, educate. Leonard's hand went up and down.
He was giving you applause, Sheila.
Applause. Oh, okay.
It was clapping hands.
I got to learn my my things. Seems as though there are 2 things in the chat. Have we looked? Good morning. Okay, that's great. Let's see. I'm kind of running at the mouth. Do any of you have questions on process?
Lindsay has her hand up.
Yeah. Let's see, Lindsay. What can we? What are you?
Hey everyone. Just wanted to jump in real quick. And I know Sheila said a lot of it, but it's a lot of this advocacy. I know how taxed as chairs and even board members we all are. But engaging with the legislators is so incredibly important. It sets a solid relationship with your representatives, and testifying even at the education committee level. It's really powerful for board members. It's a way for us to advocate for our communities before bills go into place that we then have to deal with afterwards. They look at a lot of the legislation that went in with the ELA programs last year and how we've really had to advocate and backtrack on that. Those are things that we can talk about beforehand if we can see and let the legislators know, listen, like, we have issues with this. We're concerned about this. This sets a really bad position for budget or for any reasons. And I know it's hard. Public speaking is not easy for most people. I know most of us get really used to it. But CABE's here if you need to look through different testimony and find out what your wording is, and or if you need someone to go with you. Yeah, we've got plenty of people involved, board members. I'm happy to go with anybody that wants to testify or has any questions. And the CABE staff has been amazing. Our legislative breakfast for our region we just had recently, and it was really powerful, and it was an amazing discussion between not just our legislators but our superintendents and our board members, and I know each area is a little different, and some of them are more extensive at this point. But if you can get involved with them, they really are amazing. The relationships I've made in the past 2 years with just our legislators alone have been so valuable in putting together building projects and grant approvals. We just passed a plan amendment to change our district from a 5-school district to a 3-school district, and they were incredibly helpful with that. And then even now through the school grant approvals, we've had to engage with our legislators, and already knowing them has made it so much easier for us to have that contact and work forward. But if anyone needs me, I'm always here.
Thanks so much for that, Lindsay.
That's great. Thank you. Do any of you have questions? I mean, I've got certainly more I can add, but I just wanted to kind of take a breath and see if you've got questions I can help answer. Okay, so there were a couple of other things in special that I hadn't mentioned, but I will now. They're also looking at helping classroom teachers with interventions. That's another idea. They're want to bolster up the training that the classroom teacher has so that they can intervene earlier on in the child's maybe not so far as a diagnosis if they're able to help the child early on. So that's one thing they're looking at. And then they're also looking at caseload caps. We don't know how much pushback they'll get on that, but know that that's out there in the consideration. You would have trouble with that, I imagine, because you are all having trouble. Well, many of you are having trouble hiring teachers. So even put that into the mix of your conversations and your testimony in terms of, you're down a teacher, you're not down a teacher, how long it took to find a teacher, you lost a teacher, whatever those conversations are in your district, those are helpful too. The committee, the education committee met a couple of days prior, and I just wanted to tell you some of this will go out as well on our Friday advocacy highlights, and look for those every Friday or more often as we know that public hearings are scheduled. We'll be giving you an understanding as to what bills are coming forward. So right now, the Education Committee has approved concepts to be raised. Many of them are, well, here, an act implementing the recommendations of the Department of Education. I did say write in a previous journal article about what the recommendations from the department were. You may have your journal kicking around, or maybe it was a one that we did online, I don't know, but look for that article and we can post that again as well. There's recommendations for Office of Early Childhood, technical education and career systems, technical high schools. There are, you'll love it, there are acts concerning various revisions to the education statutes. There's an act concerning assorted revisions to the education statutes. So you can see that they're setting up some use the word dummy, some use the word I forget the other terms that are used, but these are bills that will be populated with smaller, important, but smaller issues that the legislature is looking into. There is a bill here, or a concept again, on crisis response drills. The legislature has had a task force on crisis response drills. They're looking at, as they did in the last 2 years, and the bill didn't move forward, are looking at not having as many crisis response drills a year. They're looking at one full drill. Full, I mean everyone in the building, students, staff. And then another one that would just be staff. And that's there is some pushback in terms of not giving enough, I believe the term Patrice is muscle memory,
Yes.
for students to be able to understand if they've only gone through it once, what their role is in getting out of a classroom or staying in a classroom. And then I should say that the concept was raised originally by Jennifer Leeper, who is now the co-chair of the committee, who's a former Fairfield School Board member. Representative Leeper had a personal experience with one of her children coming home and being a little bit traumatized, I think is what the situation was, by one of the drills. And she wondered how often this would need to be done. There have been conversations certainly with public safety on this issue and fire marshals and so forth as well. And the task force is due to report out. There's a bill here on smart devices in schools, public libraries. What other ones were in here that we educator diversity, educator certification. Patrice is just beginning to serve on I think it's been 3 meetings now, but the teacher certification process, which is a complicated process, and would take more than one webinar on that. And again, early stages on that. But the premise behind that is there may be opportunities to get more people into the education field. And we know that's a good outcome. That's in the last bill I'm looking at here says an act concerning the availability of automated external defibrillators in public schools. There was a bill that was put in. Concepts and bills are different things, but there is a bill out there that says if you haven't already availed yourself of a gift of an external defibrillator because you were able to get public gifted dollars, or not public, gifted dollars from an entity to buy defibrillators, they're saying, well, if you haven't done that, we're going to go to the bond commission now and make sure that everyone can get a defibrillator. I have no concept as to whether or not that's going to get through the bond commission. It's not a capital expense in my mind, so I'd be surprised if it gets through, but other things that have happened, I don't know. Those are my comments. I'm gonna step back and
let's open it up. We know that you all received information this week in terms of the likely reimbursement percentage for your special ed excess cost grant, that grant that was supposed to be the safety net for you. And it's our understanding that you will only be receiving between 59 and 64% of what you are eligible for, not the whole cost, but just the part that you're eligible for will be significantly less than was originally intended by the legislature. So that's a priority of ours. It is also a priority of the special ed task force that just delivered their report to the legislature yesterday. So let's open it up to your concerns. Let's start with concerns around legislation, and then we can move to any general comments that you would like to share or support that you would like to have. We have all the members of our senior staff on this call. We've got Conrad, Nick, Jody, Lisa, Sheila, and myself. Yeah. Lindsay.
I'll just start. It's easier to start. Do we know, just from CABE's perspective, what is the best way for us to be advocating for the increase in the funding on special ed? Because I know as a regional district and smaller districts, it's become pretty apparent. It's very hard for us to keep outplacements from happening, and we're trying to keep them in-house. And a lot of that has to do with funding. And I think if we all understood a little bit more on how we can advocate for that, it's going to drastically help. And I think there's just a barrier between the legislative wording and how we can advocate. I think all of us say we want more money, but how do we ask for that?
My recommendation would be bring your stories. We were at a legislative breakfast yesterday in Brooklyn. Many small districts, not wealthy in that part of the state. And one of the superintendents said, we're trying to set up a program in our district which would serve students, high need students with some specific challenges in surrounding communities, but getting that startup money is a real challenge. So one of the proposals from the task force is that there be grants to help support the startup costs for programs like that. But I think the other piece is in terms of the excess cost reimbursement itself, stories about, all right, you were conservative and you assumed that you were not going to get all that you were entitled to. You budgeted 75% and now, or 70%, and now you find out you're getting 59%. And what that means to you as a district at this point in your budget year in terms of where are you going to make up that difference? So as specific as you, again, respecting student confidentiality. So don't go down that road, particularly in our smaller districts of, we have a child outplaced in this program for $200,000. You probably don't want to do that if you're a small district. But showing how you were responsible and conservative in your budgeting and what the impact is when you get this information in mid-January. Does that help, Lindsay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I figured that's what you would say. And I've noticed even this week, sitting down with our special ed director and our new interim superintendent, I've been able to get those answers. And I encourage everyone to do it. And I know how busy, especially our SPED directors are in districts. But they want to deal with stuff ahead. They don't want to have to deal with the downfalls of not having the funding. So we've identified, even in our small district, a few ways that drastically could change if this legislation changes for special ed, and I'm hoping that it helps us in the future proactively and not reactively.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know many of you may not be aware of the actual, formula, I guess I'll say. It's your district must expend 4.5 times your average per pupil expenditure. And my example is if you spend 10,000 to educate a student, and you don't, you spend more, but 10,000 is a nice round number. You must expend 45,000 of an outplacement of 200,000 before you can seek reimbursement for 155,000. I did my math. 155,000. So, and then if you do the percentage math, which I'm not going to do, you're not getting back that 155. You're not getting back nearly the 155. So, those are the hurdles. That's the formula. And if you, and then there are districts certainly too that can't meet that 4.5 times and that are educating a number of students in-house for well under the 4.5 times. But that's a big commitment, or not commitment, it's obviously responsibility, but, what are those numbers? How many students are you educating that don't meet the cap? How big are those programs in your district? So, and hiring, again, you're not getting the staff that you need. Yeah, I'm going on the same stories again, but.
David, I see your hand up.
Yes, I think it's back to Sheila. You had started doing a laundry list early on about special ed information to have available. If you could also send that out, in addition to, obviously people can access, other chairs can access this meeting, but it would be good to have, bullets of here's the information you may want to consider, and each district could be different. Some may really look at, is that 4.5 times the issue, or is it more based on your own experiences, the excess cost part of that? But I think I started writing all those down, but I think it's good to have those bullets so that we all know we can send this to if we don't have it, we send it to our finance person through our superintendents to get those and explain why we're doing it. And most superintendents will be glad to get you that information.
Okay,
Thank
great. Yeah, and again, that's nice that you want to give it to us, but give it directly to them. Sit down with them, have a conversation with them. Um, I would say 98% of them have no understanding as to what your special ed situations are. They don't. They
Yeah,
have no understanding.
the good thing about our district, and Leonard's on as well, is we have the co-chair of the special
Yes.
ed education committee, Miriam Khan.
Yeah.
Doug McCrory was in town. He's co-chair of education from the Senate side. He just had a dog and pony show community forum this past week that Leonard and I attended with Dr. Russell Tucker as well. So we happen to be well situated. Our other state representative used to be board president Jane Garibay. So our legislators know, but really it's the numbers, it's the stories that they need that I'd like to get to them.
Mhm. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I did write a small blurb for our next journal on a special ed. So yes, I will give you an email, all of you board chairs, in terms of the points that I made. But I also put that in a small article I just wrote yesterday for our next journal.
Mark, your hand is up.
Yes, hi. Well, I think the state is failing us in two different areas. Number one, first of all, the pocketbook side, they're not giving the amount that they promised. And on the regulatory side, they're not helping anything for escalation of cost. We just got a letter from EastCon stating that they're increasing their special ed costs by 15% for the starting the end of January. So mid-year contract change, basically. So I think that the state should come in and put a cap on costs that providers provide for those services. So, cap it at whatever, 5% or something so that we don't get, hit on both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're reminding me of a conversation that the State Board of Ed had yesterday. Staff member Ajit Gopalakrishna said they are looking at making a change or asking outplacement entities to have two districts by December 31st, their tuition increases so that you can better plan in your budget. Now, I don't think it wasn't setting a cap as you're asking, but it was letting you all know in advance of your starting your budget process what the increase or what the rate will be for the following year. I'm certainly dismayed to know that they're midstream, Mark, changing the agreement they've had with you. Again, huge story to be able to tell to your legislators and beyond. I mean, that's, Kathy Austin will eat up that.
But and it's my understanding, because this issue was raised at the legislative breakfast yesterday, it's my understanding that EastCon overall is in significant financial difficulty, and that they are asking the legislature for funds in order to stabilize their finances. So there's that piece of it. And the task force report does, the special ed task force report does urge that the legislature require that there be, if increases in the costs for special ed services from private providers or RESCs exceed the cost of living, that there be a process to justify that. The balance here is sometimes they need the increased costs in order to get the staff they need to serve these high, these students with significant needs. And if they're not able to get the staff, they'll close down the program and you have no place to send the student. So it is a very complicated issue, but certainly these mid-year changes impact your budget, that you don't have the discretion to deal with it.
Yeah, and to me, it looks like they're using their program as a profit center to address their other economic woes.
No.
Also, I just like to comment on the lobbying effort. I mean, short term, yes, gather your evidence, go give testimony to the legislature. But long term, you've got to think, what can you do long term? I mean, all of our boards are generally associated with one of the two major parties. Work on your town committees, volunteer as a worker for your legislators, uh, you know, get in good with them on a long-term basis so that you build up that relationship on a more personal basis as opposed to just seeing you, you know, uh, when there's a problem.
Yeah, there was a former state rep, Bill Dyson from New Haven, and many years ago, he said, "Have a conversation before you have to have a conversation." So develop that relationship, as Mark's saying. Have them out to your district to read for Dr. Seuss Day or whatever it may be. Have them out to celebrate something before you need to ask them a really big favor or tell them something that's horrendously bad in the district. So yeah, do develop that relationship and have them to your board meetings. I mean, you know, they're busy, you're busy, I get it. But if they've not been able to come to one of our breakfasts, if you've not had an opportunity to get with them, invite them. Invite your senator and your state reps or your many state reps or many state senators. Um, you know, when I worked at the legislature, that was one of my jobs for the state senator I worked for, was making sure he got out to all of his four districts, to the town council, to the board of ed, before or as session was starting. So they expect it. I would encourage you to do it.
Thanks, Sheila. Other comments? I see Leonard is moving fast. He was driving. He's now in his office. I, I hope you're not going to have to be called out to a fire because we'll see you there, I guess.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to piggyback a little bit on behalf of CABE. I really like the discussion. And what Sheila just stated is very important. It's building the relationships. And what CABE, what we try to do on behalf of you board members is that we try to build those relationships. And more equally important, we thank them for the work that they've previously done. And even more important, we always end the conversations, what can CABE do for you? What can CABE do for you to help you do your job in the area of education through all the committee work to make the process better for us board members at the local level? And sometimes the legislators are stunned by that response, that question, because they're never asked to, for help. It's almost, we're always going for them when there's something wrong. So it's also, this session is going to be very special. There's a supermajority in both the House and the Senate. But it doesn't matter what political party has the majority. My point is that we engage every single legislator and make sure that everyone understands the plight of education in the state of Connecticut and how it impacts rural, urban, and suburban districts. It may be in different aspects, but the pain is all the same at the end of the day. And the decision that you make in your district is a decision that affects all the districts. So we have to make sure that this session, that we now are going to have the executive branch and the legislative branch actually working well with each other to come up with common sense solutions, because this legislature has the ability to override any governor veto on any topic. That's not to say to bully anything through. It needs to be in a bipartisan manner. I truly support that. But this is an opportunity for us to go out to our legislators, both state senators and representatives, and articulate to them exactly the issues that we have and make sure that we keep local control at the local level for policy and curriculum, but at the same time, articulate to them that we don't have control over the purse. We have to work with the taxing authorities, we have to work with the state legislators, and we have to work with federal grants as well in order to do our work. That takes time, that takes relationship building, and you may not see the fruit right away. It may take 4, 5, 6 years before you see that fully in full motion on behalf of your town, but you have to take that first step. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's a lot of work. And here at CABE, we're here to work with you. We're here to provide you that training. We're here to provide you that support. And we are willing to work with any Board of Ed in the state of Connecticut that needs help with the articulation and to lobby for on their behalf to make sure that they're fighting for the kids in a respectful and ethical way in their respective districts. So Patrice and her staff stands at the ready. Myself and the board of directors, we stand at the ready to serve you, and we're here for you. So please utilize us. Thank you, Patrice.
Thanks for that, Leonard. And you should all know that Leonard is in meetings with legislative leaders with us. He you may have caught him on the news. We had a virtual press availability late last week, early this week. And that got covered, and he is a very articulate spokesperson on your behalf. I'm going to go to Seth because I don't think we've heard from him yet today, and then back to Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. I apologize. I was in the car I missed the first 10 minutes of the meeting because I had my board executive committee meeting until 11 that ran over. And then I just got home. So I'm sorry if I missed anything and I'm covering old ground here. Um, one of the things that I saw that in our CABE update the other day on media, I forget what we call it, but CABE in the news.
Cave in the news.
Yeah, CABE in the news. Thank you. Um, is that the cities are banding together and the superintendents and their mayors and really pushing for additional funding. And that is obviously taking a city-centric approach. And I think as an organization, and we can discuss this more um, at the board of directors retreat next week for those who will be there. As an organization, we need to continue to kind of find a way to keep a unified vision that expresses both the need for equity for our city and rural districts, at the same time recognizing the need for self-determination and, like Leonard just said, policy and curriculum self-determination at the local level, which tends to really be a rally cry for the more suburban districts. And I think as an organization and as board chairs and as a board of directors, when addressing that group, um, we kind of have to find a way of all meeting the needs of all those various constituencies, so that that CABE, the organization, can be all these things to all of its constituent member boards. So, I just would advocate that our advocacy strike that balance, as a, you know, so-called high-performing suburban district. I want to do my part to make sure that I'm also allowing room for advocacy that will provide equity for our students in the cities and rural areas. Um, but maybe in return, I would ask that city and rural board chairs support our efforts in the more suburban areas to have maintain control over curriculum and policy to a great degree and not get unfunded mandates.
We absolutely agree, Seth, and that's why as soon as we learned about
Mhm.
press advisory, which the press conference, we learned about it on Sunday night. Leonard, Meg, Jill and I were in communication. We reached out to Fran Rabinowitz at CAPS and worked with our communications consultant to develop that very brief joint statement talking about the needs of all of our children, which did get picked up. And interestingly enough, it turns out that CAPS and apparently CCM, as well as CABE, didn't know anything about that planned media event. We did certainly note that it did not include the board chairs from those 5 districts. And I also always remind our larger district board members that that cooperation and collaboration and messaging about all students is important, because even if every legislator representing those 5 largest districts wants to do something, they need a lot more votes in order to accomplish it. And so they need the votes of the rural and the suburban legislators to make something happen.
And if I may piggyback on Patrice's statement, if I could be candid with my board members, I was very hot about the situation. It gives the public optic that the superintendents are beholden to the taxing authority's head agent, whether it's the first selectman, the mayor, whomever, or the town manager. At the end of the day, the superintendent reports to the Board of Education, and that is the entity that supervises them. There might be some nuances within certain city charters, how that chair is selected, but at the end of the day, it's a Board of Education function to supervise. So when we saw that, we were very disappointed. We are unified as CABE with CAPS. We stand united with them with our messaging. We were very disappointed that the 5 board chairs from those respective cities were not standing side by side with their superintendents. So we're very, well, excuse me, I'm going to say Leonard Lockhart is very irked by that. And the blatant disrespect is something that I don't take kindly to. At the end of the day, the work of a Board of Ed member needs to be celebrated and saluted. And when it's public forums like that don't have board members up there articulating on behalf of 1,400 of us, that's very disappointing. So, Seth, to your point, it was a bad optic. No one knew about it. And I'm appreciative of Patrice and Fran coming together on a Sunday night, drafting a very clear, concise statement saying, hey, we're advocating for every single child, every single district within the state of Connecticut. And I think that message resonated a lot louder than the press conference that they just had.
Thanks, Leonard. Lindsay.
I'm always so appreciative of Leonard and Seth because they always say what I want to say before I have to say it, and they are so much more articulated than I am. So thank you both. I won't rehash what they just said, but I fully support everything they just said. The only thing I will add is, we talk about being involved with parties and how we're all representative of, a political party, most likely. I can't tell you how important this journey in the past 3 years has been for me to understand that no matter what, if I am a part of a party, the legislators within our district deserve our time and respect no matter the party. We all have to campaign and it's not always pretty. And so those relationships might be strained with other parties, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, the work we've done between our board and our legislators across party lines has made it so we've been successful in the being able to pass our plan amendment, pass our bonding, and make our education system in our district better for kids. And so no matter what argument you've had with the legislator, no matter what you think of their opinion, they have to represent our district. And you have to make those relationships somehow. And even sometimes it's saying, hey, listen, I know we haven't gotten along before. I know we don't agree 100%, but some legislators may not take kindly to that. They may not be okay with that, but I can say the ones in our district we're so receptive of that and thankful, and they do want to hear from us, even if we don't agree on everything.
That's a really important point, Lindsay. And I think the fact that while there may be disagreement on specifics, it's hard to find somebody that says, no, I don't support making sure the students in my district have a quality public education experience. So that's the common ground. Kate.
Hi. I did raise my hand right before, so I wasn't reacting directly to Lindsay's comment, but I do agree. I just wanted to bring up kind of related to rising costs and questions, and I know we're getting near the end, so if this needs to come up at a different time, or if this could be something that's possibly listed on a legislative concern. But we've been more impacted by McKinney-Vento recently as well, and just trying to figure out those costs and if, which kids are going where or coming to us and like different things with that I'm still trying to kind of get my arms around as well. But I know it has impacted us. Believe we had one family where, there was a fire and people were out of their home for a extended period of time, and that town was having to pay, out of their cost to find housing, but then we were also having to pay for transportation. And it was just it's something that we've questioned, like, can we go back to the town and say, hey, this was a totally unexpected cost for us. Can you help us pay for some of this? Or is it strictly a Board of Ed um, cost? So I just wanted I know that may be even a bigger concern in larger towns or cities, but I just wanted to kind of see how other people are dealing with it, if it could be on a upcoming agenda type of thing.
Kate, where are you from?
East Windsor.
Thank you.
Okay. Definitely, Kate, and we're actually going to be in Washington, D.C. in about 10 days, lobbying our congressional delegation. So this is an issue that we can bring up there as well. My short answer is it's always okay to go back to the town and say, can you help us with these expenses? That again will depend upon relationships and receptivity, and that might be a successful ask in some communities, and in other communities it might be a you got to be kidding me response from the municipal officials. Anyone else have that concern or experience that you want to share with Kate?
In the past, when things like that, the one-off situations have come up in our town, we usually have a close enough relationship with and we keep a tri-chair committee open that we meet once in a while, which is the board chairs of our Board of Selectmen, our Board of Finance, and Board of Ed. We generally meet with the superintendent, the facilities director, and the finance director all on the call about once a month. But we would generally bring something like that up and ask if it would be proper and if it would be countenanced to do it as a special appropriation. And usually the town would, the Board of Selectmen would vote to bring up a special appropriation for something like that.
All right, I appreciate that. We do have a number of students right now that this is an ongoing issue, just with homelessness and transportation. So I think it is something we need to kind of figure out what the trends are and if it's going to continue to impact us.
All right, I don't see any more hands vigorously raised, and we're getting very close to the end of our hour together. So on behalf of the CABE board and staff, we greatly appreciate your engagement. Please be in touch with us, particularly on advocacy issues. Be in touch with Sheila, and we look forward to talking to you again next month. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Have a great week, everyone.